Welcome to my channel. Today, in the first part, I will tell you about the use of a terrible weapon, the atomic bomb. Enjoy your viewing. On August 6, 1945, the United States used military nuclear weapons for the first time in the history of mankind to persuade Japan to surrender in World War I. Japan's invasion of East China led to a full-scale war between the two countries in 1937. In response, the United States and Western countries banned the export of many goods to Japan, including petroleum products. The United States entered World War II on December 7, 1941, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, an attack by the Japanese aircraft carrier fleet on an American naval base. During the attack, 2,403 American soldiers were killed and another 1,178 were injured. After that, the United States declared war on Japan, and Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy declared war on the United States. Please like this video and subscribe to this new channel, and you will see many more interesting and useful things. I promise you a mutual subscription. The United States justifies dropping atomic bombs on Japanese cities by saying that a direct invasion of Japan would have killed at least 500,000 American soldiers and at least Japanese. The United States has been developing nuclear weapons since the late 1930s. By the summer of 1945, the United States had 3 nuclear bombs: the plutonium thing and Fat Man, as well as the uranium baby. The use of atomic bombs is considered a turning point of the Second World War. The technical preparations for the atomic bombing took place as follows. During May-June 1945, the American 509th Mixed Aviation Group arrived on Tinian Island. The group's base area on the island was several miles away from the rest of the units and was heavily guarded. On July 26, the cruiser Indianapolis delivered an atomic bomb to Tinian. On July 28, the Chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, George Marshall, signed an order for the combat use of nuclear weapons. This order, developed by the head of the Manhattan Project, Major General Leslie Groves, ordered a nuclear strike any day after the 3rd of August, as soon as weather conditions permit. On July 29, the commander of the Strategic Aviation, General Carl Spaatz, arrived on Tinian, delivering Marshall's order to the island. Favorable weather developed only on August 6. After midnight, an order was given to Colonel Tibbets at Tinian Airfield to drop the kid on the center of Hiroshima. The B-29 bomber was accompanied by 6 reconnaissance aircraft. A TM. Japanese radars detected the approach of aircraft. An air raid alert was announced in Hiroshima, but the Air Defense Command has determined that there are few planes, which means they are most likely sent for reconnaissance. In order to save scarce fuel and ammunition, the Japanese decided not to raise fighters against such small forces, and don't even use anti-aircraft artillery. Tibbets unhindered his bomber to the target and at 8:15 am dropped a kid with a capacity of 13 kilotons of TNT into the center of Hiroshima from a height of 9 kilometers. For men, women, and children, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was codenamed Little Boy. Its length was 3 meters, diameter 71 centimeters, weight 4.4 tons. President Truman was given a coded message about the results of the bombing when he was having lunch on the ship, returning to America from the Potsdam Allied Conference. In his memoirs, he will write, "I was eating lunch when Captain Graham gave me a message. The bomb has been dropped. The success is even more outstanding than in the trials. I was deeply moved. I called the correspondents on board and told them about the long-term developments that lay behind this successful attack." So, on August 6, at 8:15, the bomb Malish left the bomb bay. Then the plane made a sharp turn 155 degrees to the right and descended 518 meters. The bomb exploded about 576 meters above the city, and the explosion power was 13 kilotons. A minute later, the plane was overtaken by the first shockwave, which spread at a speed of about 335 meters per second. the bomb contained 64 kilograms of highly enriched uranium-235, and less than a kilogram of this uranium was subjected to nuclear fission. In a radius of half a kilometer, everything turned to dust. Within a 2-kilometer radius, everything was scorched. 90% of the people inside this deadly circle died within a minute. Their skin and internal organs exploded from the heat. The mushroom of the radioactive cloud rose 12 kilometers. A firestorm swept through the entire city. She swallowed up those who remained alive. Many suffered burns, from which the skin almost completely peeled off their bodies. Exposure to radiation caused nausea, vomiting, bleeding, and hair loss. Over time, some people developed cataracts and developed malignant tumors. The first real understanding by the Japanese of what really caused the disaster came from a public message from Washington. Statement by the President of the United States of America Harry Truman. 16 hours ago, an American plane dropped a single bomb on Hiroshima, an important base of the Japanese army. This bomb had more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. Its charge is more than 2,000 times higher than the charge of the British Grand Slam, the largest bomb used in the history of wars. In a declassified report by the Japanese ambassador to the USSR, it is said that at a distance of 5-7 km from Hiroshima Station, almost all buildings were destroyed. Only reinforced concrete structures survived. The report notes that the foliage of the trees was scorched unevenly. Some people received severe burns, and some were not injured at all. The authors explained that this suggests that the energy of the bomb was radiated not by a solid mass, but by beams, resulting in unaffected areas, but at a distance from the explosion. Within a radius of 1 kilometer from the explosion, all life was destroyed. According to rough estimates, the atomic explosion in Hiroshima claimed the lives of 70,000 to 80,000 people in the first seconds, and by the end of 1945, about 165,000 people died from burns and radiation sickness. Over the next 10 years, the number of deaths from radiation sickness and cancer exceeded 200,000 people. The survivors of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, as well as their children, were called Hibakusha. The atomic bombings caused long-term psychological disorders in the Hibakusha, as well as difficult-to-treat diseases such as cancer, teratomorphy deformity, and disability. Atomic bombs, which caused the deaths of thousands of people, also led to the destruction of all plant and natural life in the affected area. It has been 80 years since the United States detonated the baby, the first atomic bomb in human history. At the time of the Hiroshima attacks, Korea had been a Japanese colony for 35 years. At that time, about 140,000 Koreans lived in Hiroshima. Many ended up there as a result of forced labor mobilization, and some fled the hardships of colonial exploitation. In Japan, Koreans were second-class people, and they were often assigned the hardest, dirtiest, and most dangerous jobs. After the atomic bombing, this position of Koreans in Japanese society led to the fact that it was they who had to do dangerous, and often deadly, work in Hiroshima. Korean workers had to remove the bodies. At first, they used stretchers, but there were too many bodies. Eventually, they began collecting corpses with shovels and burning them in schoolyards. According to a study by the Gyeonggi Welfare Foundation, some surviving Koreans had to clear the rubble and remove bodies from under the rubble, while the Japanese evacuated and fled to relatives in other cities. Koreans who had no connections in Japan remained in Hiroshima, exposed to the fallout. In addition, they had very limited access to medical care. After the bombing that led to the surrender of Japan and the subsequent liberation of Korea, about 23,000 surviving Koreans returned home. But they were not welcome there. They were called lepers or cursed. Those who returned had to face prejudice even in their homeland. People who suffered severe burns or lived in extreme poverty were treated horribly. Some of the survivors had their backs and faces so disfigured that only their eyes were visible. They were shunned and shunned. The impact of nuclear explosions on the psyche was also enormous. Many Hibakusha were traumatized by the horror they had experienced, the loss of loved ones, and the enduring fear of developing cancer due to radiation exposure, many had to face discrimination because of their appearance. Others often considered their wounds evidence that they were carriers of infectious diseases. Someone lived with a deep sense of guilt for having survived themselves, but were unable to save others. With stigma came poverty and deprivation. Then came heart disease, kidney failure, and cancer. The symptoms indicated the effects of radiation on the body, but no one could explain them. Over time, the focus of public attention shifted to the second and third generations. Representatives of the second generation of bombing victims are much more likely than the average residents of the country to suffer from depression, cardiovascular diseases, and anemia. Among the descendants of the victims of the bombing, there are almost twice as many as the national average. Japanese textbooks still do not mention the history of Korea's colonial past, nor do they mention that there were many Koreans among the victims of the Hiroshima bombing. In her opinion, such silence only exacerbates the injustice. In addition, despite financial assistance from the government, Hibakusha children are forced to eke out a miserable existence due to the fact that they are not employed. They are not married or married because of the risk of genetic abnormalities in children from such marriages. To be continued.